Have you ever wondered why so many women, even the strongest among us, end up feeling emotionally drained, misunderstood, or even broken-hearted? It's not because they're weak. It's not because they lack intelligence or value. It's because of one powerful yet often overlooked truth in today's world, a truth about a woman's dignity, her depth, and her divine design. We live in an age where oversharing is celebrated. Social media encourages us to expose every corner of our lives. We're told that to be real is to be an open book. But let me challenge that idea for a moment. God did not create you to be an open book for just anyone to flip through. You are not some story on a coffee table waiting for curious eyes. You are a sacred scroll, a hidden history, a divine mystery wrapped in grace and power. And that mystery? It's not meant for everyone. It's reserved for the worthy. You were designed to be treasured, not consumed, to be pursued, not casually accessed. Yet so many women today give too much too soon, to men who were never ready to honor the depths they were given access to. Let's be clear. This is not about manipulation. This is about preservation. This is about understanding your value and walking in the wisdom God intended for you. So today, I'm going to reveal 7 powerful things a woman should always keep guarded from a man, not to deceive him, but to protect her heart, her calling, and her God-given anointing. And I promise you, if you stay with me to the end, your entire perspective on relationships and self-worth will shift. You will no longer feel the need to explain or expose yourself in ways that leave you empty. Instead, you'll learn how to move with quiet strength and sacred confidence. Are you ready? Because here's the truth. A woman's greatest power isn't just found in what she reveals, it's found in what she chooses to withhold. In a world that idolizes transparency, we must learn to value the art of discretion. Mystery is not manipulation, it is wisdom wrapped in elegance. It is knowing when to speak and when silence is your strongest voice. It's understanding that not every emotion, every story, every secret needs to be laid bare in the early chapters of a connection. A woman who lives by this truth, she carries herself differently. She walks with grace, not because she's hiding from love, but because she's guarding the garden of her soul. She has learned that her vulnerability is not a commodity to be traded for attention. It's a sacred offering that deserves timing, trust, and truth. From the very beginning of creation, God crafted women with a depth that was meant to be discovered slowly, nurtured carefully, and cherished deeply. Your heart is not a disposable diary. It is a wellspring of dreams, prayers, wisdom, and passion. And when you give those parts of yourself too early, too easily, too eagerly, you risk watching the very essence of who you are being mishandled. Can we be honest? How many women have shared their fears, their childhood wounds, their spiritual struggles with a man, only to have him disappear shortly after? Not because he was evil. Maybe he was just never meant to carry that part of you. Maybe he wasn't mature enough or spiritually ready or emotionally grounded. How many times have you looked back and thought, why did I tell him all of that? Why did I let him in so soon? And the pain isn't just in the rejection, it's in the regret of misplaced trust. Beloved, it's time to reclaim that sacred wisdom. You were not made to be consumed in haste. You were made to be discovered with patience. You don't owe your story to everyone who shows you a little interest. You don't have to unpack your whole life in the first few dates or expose the battles you've fought just because someone asks a few kind questions. Discernment is your shield, not your prison. And when you learn the power of waiting, of guarding certain parts of your heart until the right time, you will begin to experience love from a place of strength, not survival. So as we dive into the 7 things a woman must keep hidden, not forever, but until it's safe, until it's sacred, remember this: you are a vessel of divine beauty, a carrier of heaven's wisdom, and a woman full of anointing. And you never need to compromise that by overexposing yourself to someone who hasn't proven they're worthy of the depth you carry. Let's walk together through this journey, not as women who are afraid, but as women who are wise. Not as women who hide, but as women who protect what God has entrusted to us. Not as women desperate to be known, but as women who understand that true love patiently pursues what is worth discovering. Shall we begin? Earlier we talked about the quiet strength found not in what a woman reveals, but in what she wisely chooses to guard. Now let's go a little deeper into that truth, because it's one that can protect not just your heart, but your entire destiny. You see, there is a certain unspoken beauty in restraint. In a world that preaches emotional exposure as proof of love, wisdom whispers a different message. Love doesn't demand complete exposure. It demands respect. And where there is real respect, there are boundaries, yet so many women today feel a silent pressure. A pressure to prove their love by laying everything on the table. Their thoughts, their traumas, their insecurities, and even the most fragile parts of their past. But here's the truth. Real love doesn't ask you to bleed to prove your loyalty. True love honors your discretion. It doesn't pry where it hasn't earned the right to enter. It doesn't make you feel guilty for keeping some things close to your heart. In fact, the strongest women, those rooted in self-worth and grounded in faith, are often the ones who don't speak too quickly, who don't hand out pieces of their soul to every man who shows up with a charming smile. This isn't about manipulation. It's about protection. There are things, sacred things, a man doesn't need to know too soon. Not because they're shameful, not because you're hiding something dark, but because they're too precious to be placed in careless hands. Your past, for instance, your private prayers, the kind that only God has heard in the stillness of night. Your quiet dreams, the ones you've held on to when no one else believed in you. These are not casual details to be tossed into small talk. These are treasures. And treasures must be protected. When shared too freely, these things can easily be misunderstood, misinterpreted, or worse, mishandled. Not every man is prepared for the depth of your soul, and not every man deserves access to it. A wise woman learns to discern who is ready to receive her truth, and who simply wants to satisfy his curiosity. And when she learns that, really learns that, she begins to carry herself differently. She no longer needs to explain her every mood or justify her boundaries. She no longer finds herself oversharing in hopes of being seen or understood. Instead, she walks with quiet confidence, at peace with the mystery she carries. She stops measuring her worth by how much she gives away. She knows she's not withholding out of fear. She's guarding out of wisdom. There is something incredibly powerful about a woman who doesn't rush to prove herself. Her silence speaks volumes. Her restraint commands respect. And her presence carries an unshakable calm that says, I know who I am, and I don't need your validation to prove it. This kind of woman draws a different kind of man. The kind who doesn't demand but honors. The kind who doesn't pressure but protects. And then there's her faith, her personal beliefs, her convictions, her walk with God. These are not just part of her identity. They are the foundation of who she is. Her faith isn't a casual opinion. It's the anchor that has held her through heartbreak, through storms, through seasons where no one else understood her, but God. So imagine the danger when a woman begins to compromise that foundation for the sake of a man. Sometimes it's subtle. Maybe he doesn't believe in the same God, or maybe he says he does, but mocks the way she prays. Maybe he dismisses her standards, tells her they're too strict or outdated. And in an effort to keep the peace, she starts to shrink her spiritual world. She skips church. She silences her prayers. She hesitates to bring up faith in conversation because she doesn't want to cause friction. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, the fire in her begins to fade. Have you seen it happen? The woman who used to radiate purpose and peace now feels restless. The woman who once stood firm in her beliefs now second-guesses herself, not because she suddenly stopped loving God, but because she allowed someone else to start shaping her spiritual rhythm. But here's what must be said. Your faith is not a bargaining chip. It is not up for debate. It is not something you should water down to make someone else comfortable. Your relationship with God is sacred, personal, and irreplaceable. And no man, no matter how attractive, persuasive, or promising, should have the power to rewrite your convictions. A man who truly loves you will honor your faith, not challenge it. He will support your walk with God, not make you feel foolish for it. He will listen when you speak of your values, not dismiss them as too much. Because the right man will never want you to lose your fire, he'll want to walk beside it. So, dear sister, do not dim your light to make someone else feel brighter. Do not trade your spiritual fire for temporary affection. Hold fast to what is eternal. Guard your truth. Protect your relationship with God like the treasure it is, because when you do, you don't just protect yourself. You preserve the very essence of who God created you to be. When a man truly honors a woman, he will also honor her relationship with God. He will not mock it, question it, or try to pull her away from it. Instead, he will gently encourage her to grow deeper, spiritually, stronger, and more rooted in her faith. Why? Because he values not just her presence, but her soul. On the other hand, a man who laughs at or belittles a woman's beliefs is revealing something important. He's showing you that he doesn't value the most sacred part of who you are. And that, dear sister, is not a small red flag. It's a flashing warning sign. So many women have fallen into the trap of believing they must water down their convictions just to keep a man's interest. But let this be said clearly. Compromising your faith to make a relationship work is not love, it's spiritual erosion. A relationship built on anything less than spiritual strength will eventually crumble under the weight of life's storms. That's why a woman must stay vigilant, constantly guarding her connection with God. It is the very source of her wisdom, her discernment, and her inner strength. When her roots are deep in faith, her vision becomes clear. She can sense the difference between words that sound sweet and actions that are truly sincere. She isn't easily fooled by empty promises. She doesn't chase validation in someone else's approval. She doesn't fall for charm that lacks character. And most importantly, she has the strength to walk away from anything, no matter how tempting, that threatens her relationship with God. You see, her faith is not something she needs to prove. It's not a badge she wears for others to critique. It's something deeply woven into her decisions, something that shapes her perspective and guides her path. It's personal, it's powerful, and it's not up for negotiation. If a man cannot embrace that part of her, then it's simple. He is not the one God has chosen for her. Now let's talk about something just as sacred: her past. A woman's past is a tapestry of lessons, trials, victories, and scars. Each thread tells a story, not always pretty, but always purposeful. And just because someone asks about it doesn't mean she owes them an unfiltered retelling of every detail. Far too often, women feel cornered by the idea that honesty means laying their entire history bare. Past relationships, regrets, mistakes, moments of weakness. But here's what wisdom teaches us. Honesty and vulnerability must walk hand in hand with discernment. Not every man has the emotional maturity or spiritual grace to carry your truth with honor. Let's be real. Every woman has chapters of her life she would rewrite if she could, choices she wouldn't make again, relationships that left bruises on her soul. But those moments, painful as they may be, do not define her. They refine her. God's grace has already covered those mistakes. He has already healed what needed mending. And if He no longer holds those things against you, what gives any man the right to? A woman should never feel obligated to recount every detail of her past just to prove her loyalty or worthiness to a man. Some stories are meant to remain between her and God, because when shared too quickly or with the wrong person, those sacred memories can become fuel for manipulation. How many women have opened up their hearts in good faith, only to hear their words twisted and thrown back at them later? You did that before. How do I know you won't do it again? You were with someone like that? What does that say about you? It starts innocently, a vulnerable moment, a heart-to-heart. But in the hands of the wrong man, your past can become a weapon. And once a man learns which wounds cut deepest, some won't hesitate to use them when control or anger gets the better of them. That's why a woman must be extremely careful, not fearful, but wise. Don't hand over emotional ammunition to someone who hasn't shown they're capable of handling your heart. A mature, godly man will never demand to know every chapter of your story. He will never make you relive your pain just to satisfy his curiosity. He will be more concerned about the woman standing in front of him, the woman you've become, than the mistakes you've overcome. And let's not forget, your past is not just about missteps. It holds pain too. Deep, buried pain that sometimes takes years to process. Some wounds are still healing, and speaking about them too soon, or with someone who hasn't earned that trust, can cause those wounds to reopen. Healing is a sacred journey, and not every man deserves front-row access to that process. A woman's past isn't shameful. It's sacred. Her journey isn't something she owes to someone else. It's a testimony she shares with wisdom, and only when she knows the heart receiving it is safe. Healing is not something that should ever be rushed. It's not a task to be checked off, a list, nor is it a performance meant to impress or appease anyone else. Healing takes time. It takes quiet. It takes the presence of God. And most importantly, it takes discernment to know who deserves access to that process and who doesn't. A woman must never forget this truth. She is not defined by what she has endured. Her identity isn't rooted in her mistakes or her past pain. She is shaped by her resilience, her growth, and the grace that has carried her through every storm. When the right man enters her life, he won't need to dig through her past to decide whether or not she's worthy. He won't demand a list of her wounds or a retelling of her every regret. Instead, he will see the strength in her eyes, the wisdom in her words, the quiet dignity in how she carries herself. He'll recognize that she's not the sum of her yesterdays. She's the masterpiece of what God has done in her life today. And that brings us to something equally sacred: a woman's dreams. Her dreams are not just fleeting hopes or empty wishes. They are the visions God Himself has planted in her heart. They are the whispers that speak to her purpose, the passions that breathe life into her spirit, the aspirations that pull her toward her divine destiny. But here's the truth not many speak about. Not every dream is meant to be shared too soon, and not every man deserves to hear them. In her excitement or vulnerability, a woman may feel tempted to reveal the deep desires of her heart. But if those dreams fall on ears that lack vision, she risks more than just being misunderstood. She risks being discouraged, dismissed, or even torn down. Many women have opened their hearts only to hear the words, "That sounds unrealistic." "Are you sure you can handle that?" "Don't you think you're aiming too high?" Words like these can be devastating, especially when spoken by someone you hoped would believe in you. Whether those words come from insecurity, control, or simply small-mindedness, they carry weight. And if a woman isn't firmly grounded in her calling, those seeds of doubt can start to grow. She might begin to question herself. She might shrink her goals. She might lower her voice. And slowly the fire that once blazed inside her begins to flicker. But a wise woman knows better. She knows that some dreams are like seeds. They need soil, silence, and sunlight before they're ready to be seen. They require time in God's presence, not exposure to human judgment. There are dreams that need solitude to grow, dreams that require patience to mature. Dreams that God placed within her spirit, not for the world to dissect, but for her to carry, nourish, and pursue in faith. And so she guards them, not out of fear, but out of wisdom. Because some people, yes, even well-meaning ones, won't understand what God has called her to do. Some will try to redirect her, thinking they know better. Others, driven by envy or fear, might try to sabotage her. That's why discernment is crucial. Who has access to the sacred space of your dreams? Not every man is meant to walk with a woman into the fullness of her destiny. Not every man has the capacity to support her calling. A man who truly loves her will never try to make her smaller. He won't belittle her ambition or compete with her vision. He won't say, "You should slow down," when what she needs is someone to say, "I believe in you. Let's run this race together." Instead, he will celebrate her dreams, even if they challenge him. He will protect her purpose. He will pray for her progress. He will see her calling as part of who she is, and he'll honor it, not stifle it. Until that man comes, a woman must hold her dreams close. She must keep them in the quiet, safe in the presence of God. She must let them take root in faith, not in the shallow soil of someone else's approval, because the dreams that God gives a woman are holy. They are not fragile, but they are sacred, and sacred things are not meant to be handed over to just anyone. Strength is one of a woman's most powerful and beautiful traits, but here's a truth that often gets overlooked. It's not always meant to be displayed in full. There is something deeply noble, almost sacred, about the quiet strength of a woman, the kind of strength that holds firm through life's fiercest storms, that endures with grace, that rises again and again after being knocked down, yet not. Every man deserves to witness the full force of that strength. Some will cherish it, others will try to use it, and a wise woman learns to discern the difference. Because being strong doesn't mean she has to prove anything to anyone. Too often, women feel pressure, subtle or spoken, to always be the strong one in a relationship. She becomes the fixer, the emotional anchor, the one who absorbs stress, calms chaos, and picks up every piece, even when her own soul feels like it's quietly unraveling. She may sacrifice silently without being asked. She may give endlessly without receiving much in return, and she may push through pain, thinking her resilience will somehow earn her deeper love or lasting respect. But the wrong man won't see the sacrifice. He'll simply see a convenience. He will depend on her strength without ever offering his own. He'll grow comfortable leaning on her while offering little to lean on himself. He won't ask how she's holding up. He won't notice when she's exhausted, because he'll assume she's strong, she can handle it. But no woman should have to be unbreakable. Strength does not mean pretending you never get tired. It does not mean silencing your need for tenderness, support, or rest. And it certainly doesn't mean enduring more than you were ever meant to carry. True strength is knowing when to stand up, but also when to sit down and breathe. It's knowing when to speak boldly, and when to retreat into God's arms and rest. A woman must be careful not to exhaust her strength on someone who only wants to benefit from it without ever pouring anything back into her soul. Some men, when they see a strong woman, will assume she has no emotional needs. They'll dismiss her desire for affection or reassurance. They'll say, "She's independent, she doesn't need help," and they'll use that as an excuse to neglect her heart. But independence does not cancel out longing. Self-sufficiency does not erase the need for care, and inner strength does not mean she's invincible. That's why a wise woman learns to protect her strength. She doesn't have to prove how much she can endure. She doesn't need to carry everyone's burdens alone. And she absolutely must not pretend that she doesn't need support, just to keep someone from walking away. Because true strength isn't just endurance, it's wisdom. It's knowing when to ask for help. It's knowing when to be vulnerable, and with whom. And it's knowing when to walk away from a relationship that constantly drains her rather than replenishes her. A woman's strength is a gift, but even a gift needs boundaries. When a woman reveals the full extent of what she can handle, especially too soon or with the wrong man, she risks becoming the one who always gives and rarely receives. She becomes the emotional shelter, the spiritual anchor, the steady presence, without anyone noticing that she's quietly fading inside. But when she's wise, she guards her strength, not out of fear, but out of sacred awareness. She remembers that she was never meant to carry the world on her shoulders. She was meant to walk with God, to rest in Him, and to be partnered with someone who uplifts her, not someone who rides on her endurance. Her greatest power is not in how much she can survive, but in her ability to discern when enough is enough, when it's time to stop carrying more than she was created for, when it's time to say, "I'm strong, but I need support too." And just as her strength is sacred, so is her heart. A woman's heart is a deep, intricate, sacred place, filled with love, dreams, fears, convictions, and quiet thoughts that sometimes even she hasn't fully voiced. But not everything within that heart is meant to be revealed. Not every emotion, not every longing, not every sacred intention should be laid bare before a man. Not because she's hiding, but because she's wise. Wisdom teaches her that some things are meant to remain between her and God. Not every part of a woman's story is meant to be told. Not every wound needs to be reopened, and not every chapter of her past belongs in someone else's hands. There is wisdom in silence, there is strength in discretion, and there is sacredness in keeping certain pieces of her journey between her and God. Healing is not a performance, it's a process, and no woman should ever feel pressured to rush it, especially not for the sake of pleasing someone else. Her worth is not measured by how much of her past she's willing to reveal. Her value is not dependent on her ability to explain or justify everything she's been through. The right man won't need a complete history to honor her present. He will see the grace that's shaped her. He will feel the wisdom she's earned. And he will love her not in spite of her journey, but because of the beauty it's birthed within her. She won't have to relive her deepest pains to prove her sincerity. She won't be asked to unpack her every regret just to earn trust. Because a man who truly values her won't need to scrutinize the ashes. He'll see the fire she carries now. And when it comes to her dreams, they are sacred. A woman's dreams are not random wishes or fleeting ideas. They are the divine whispers of God, sown deep into her heart, planted with purpose, watered by hope, and brought to life by faith. But dreams are delicate things. They require protection. They thrive in quiet, and they wither under judgment or careless words. Not every dream should be spoken aloud. Not every hope needs immediate exposure. And not every man deserves access to the vision God has given her, because when she shares too soon, she risks handing her sacred calling to someone who may not understand it, or worse, someone who will diminish it. There are men who, out of insecurity or ignorance, will hear her dreams and respond with doubt. That's too ambitious. You're not ready for that. Be more realistic. And if she's not careful, their unbelief can take root in her spirit. Suddenly the fire that once burned bright begins to dim. She second-guesses. She downscales. She silences her own voice, all because someone else couldn't see what God showed her. But a wise woman knows. The dream doesn't need their permission. The vision doesn't require their validation. And the calling doesn't fade just because someone else can't comprehend it. Some dreams are meant to grow in secret, nurtured in prayer, hidden in faith, protected in solitude. There will be seasons where God asks her to carry the vision quietly, guarding it like a precious seed until it is strong enough to bloom. And there will be men, good men, who may not mean harm, but simply cannot see what she sees. They may try to steer her elsewhere, not because they wish her failure, but because they are walking by sight, not by faith. Then there are others, driven by fear, envy, or control, who may intentionally try to derail her purpose. They will shrink her with subtle criticisms, belittle her with passive doubts, and attempt to mold her dreams into something smaller, safer, more manageable for them. But she was not made to shrink. She was not created to silence her fire just to soothe someone else's insecurity. She was made to shine, to build, to rise, to run after the calling God placed in her spirit. And the man who is meant to walk beside her, he won't be threatened by her passion. He won't compete with her vision. He won't try to dim her light so that his shines brighter. Instead, he will become her greatest encourager. He will pray over her dreams as if they were his own. He will speak life into her calling, reminding her of what God has said, especially on the days she doubts it. He will not be a roadblock to her purpose, but a bridge that helps her get there. But until that man appears, until his words align with support, until his actions reflect honor, and until his presence breathes peace, she must keep certain dreams locked in the quiet places of her heart, not out of fear, but out of discernment. Because when the wrong person enters too soon, they can disrupt what God is still forming. But when the right person comes, he will recognize the holiness of her calling, and he will handle it with reverence. Some things are meant to grow in the presence of God before they are ever spoken into the presence of man. So until then, she dreams in silence, she works in faith, she walks with God, and she trusts that the one who's meant to walk with her will never ask her to trade her calling for his comfort. A woman's heart is not a story to be passed around. It is a sanctuary, sacred, layered, full of light and mystery. And her deepest emotions, her softest longings, her most intimate truths are not meant to be laid bare for just anyone. There is a holy kind of power in discretion. There is strength in choosing silence over unnecessary explanations. There is dignity in guarding the sacred parts of who she is. A wise woman knows that vulnerability is not weakness, it is sacred currency, and not everyone has earned the right to receive it. She doesn't overshare in search of connection. She doesn't spill her soul hoping for someone's approval. She doesn't hand the keys to her innermost places to a man who has not shown himself trustworthy, because she understands what is sacred must be protected. She walks through life with quiet confidence, grounded, calm, unshaken by opinions. Her strength is not loud, but it is undeniable. Her wisdom doesn't demand attention, it simply commands respect. Her grace is not performative. It flows from a deep well of self-awareness and spiritual intimacy. She doesn't need the world to understand her. She only needs to remain true to who she is and to the God who crafted her so intentionally. And in that truth, she rests. She knows that love is not proven through exposure. That connection does not require over-explanation. And that peace is often found in what is left unsaid. She trusts that the right man, the one who is sent, not just present, will honor the parts of her heart that she chooses to reveal. He will not rush her process or demand access to everything too soon. He will recognize the beauty in her restraint, the power in her boundaries, and the sacredness of being invited into her inner world. And until that moment comes, she is not waiting in lack, she is flourishing in wisdom. She is choosing what to reveal and when. She is discerning what to protect and why. And she is growing, rooted in truth, surrounded by grace, led by faith. So may you walk in wisdom, undaunted by the noise of the world. May you stand in strength, unshaken by misunderstanding or pressure. And may you carry your soul like the treasure it truly is, guarded, radiant, and whole, because the most valuable treasures are not put on display for all to see. They are kept hidden until the right time, in the right hands, with the right heart. And when that moment arrives, it won't require you to prove yourself. It will feel like peace, and it will honor the sacred within you.